Welcome to the Banderpod, the peregrine and precise podcast of Bandersnatch Books. We're a small press publisher of treasures found off the beaten path for lovers of all that is good, true, and beautiful. I'm Annie Beth Donahue, and today I'm joined by the author of our upcoming book, Seichō Summer, Bethany Faulk. Bethany, welcome to the Banderpod.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. All right, Bethany. So we are so excited to have you here today to talk about what will be our next book, Seichō Summer, because it's not completely fiction. It's not a memoir, but it's heavily based on actual events from your life. So I wanted to start off by having you expound on that. We would love to hear a little bit about your inspiration and maybe some Easter eggs so people have the inside scoop on this book.
So when I was a teenager, my family did go to Japan to visit my grandparents. And so we all wanted to go along and join. And in reality, I only wrote about 7 pages worth of journal while I was there. And I always kind of regretted that because there were so many great memories. And so when I was thinking, okay, I want to sit down and I want a book that I could write in a month. I know many people have tried to do it, and I tried to do it many times and failed. And in order to do it this particular time, I thought I'm going to make it absolutely kind of a foolproof way to have a book that I could write in a month. I thought, well, here's something that I've got the kind of the bones of what happened, but also I won't get too caught up in the nitty gritty of getting every single detail right. So I kind of like to say it was inspired by Little House on the Prairie. Laura Ingalls Wilder. These things, a lot of them really happened, but there's also a lot of, many years have passed. So I got creative, merged characters together and such.
So were you doing an official like NaNoWriMo, or was this just a personal goal of writing a book in a month?
I didn't officially. It was definitely in November. But I never really logged into the website or anything, but I definitely, all of my friends were doing NaNoWriMo. So I thought, well, I'll try and write one in a month to participate. But
So what you just explained kind of answers one of the questions I had, which was what inspired you to write a character-driven coming-of-age story? I mean, you could have done something else. You could have gone a different direction. So you didn't say, you know what, I'm going to write a mystery based on my time at the lake, or I'm going to write you could have come up with other options. So what made you go that direction?
that part was inspired by my actual journey, because when I look at my journal, I do have to laugh at myself because at the very beginning, I do sound like this is the end of the world. Oh no, I have to go to Japan, which as an adult, you're looking at that and you're laughing and you're thinking, wow, your biggest problem in life is that you get to go to Japan. But I can't remember those feelings because I did have all of these other things that I wanted to do that summer that, you're thinking at the time, this is my only chance to do these things. And so as I was writing it, just a lot of that just came out very naturally in the sense of, maybe I didn't identify this stuff at the time, but now as an adult, I can look back and say, wow, I learned so much.
Yeah, that's really neat. I can imagine you picking up those old entries and reading that at the beginning and thinking, okay, this is it. This is what needs to come out in the story, is that journey from the girl who did not want to go to Japan at all to someone who, well, I don't want to give any spoilers for Seichō Summer, but someone who grew a lot. And speaking of that, we chose the title Seichō Summer because the word Seichō has implications for growth and sort of reflects that journey that you had in the book. Once again, we're not going to give spoilers here, but if you could kind of dance around that a little bit and explain how Seichō fits into the story, that would be great.
So I think we talked about how the connotations of that word do have to do with growing and maturing, and that's definitely a theme, even from the very first line, which is also inspired from a line in my journal, which when you are this middle teen age, you're not really sure whether you're a kid or you're an adult. And one of my kids really summed it up really well recently when he said, well, you're too old to get a toy gun, but you're too young to get a real gun. And it made me laugh, just to say that you're not really sure whether you're playing with toys or you're, going to concerts, where do I fit in here? I'm not really sure.
Right. Do I get a job or do I play? You know?
Yes, and so that kind of theme I think is running through there. I did really like how the title brings that kind of all together, pulls all those threads.
Yes, you're betwixt and between. Mhm. And I mean, stating the obvious here, but maybe not everyone is going to realize this. It's obvious to me because I read the book. Seichō is a Japanese word, not something we just made up.
Yes, I think that that does help also in the sense of letting you know right off the bat that it takes place in Japan.
Yeah, and actually, you work in a lot of Japanese vocabulary, and not that this is like to be an educational book per se. It is a great story, but I mean, people are going to read this and learn some things they didn't know. I think that's a bonus.
That is another thing that helped me to continue writing the book when at the times when I would feel kind of stuck was to just remember that again when Laura Ingalls Wilder was writing her book, maybe to her this is just everyday stuff, but now when we read it, we're thinking, I mean, if you read the beginning of Little House in the Big Woods, wow, right off the bat, you're learning how to smoke meat in an old log and stuff like that, which to her might have been just everyday stuff, but to us is just so educational. And so when I'm writing, I'm thinking, well, this stuff, should I even write it? It's just so so innate. And yet I was realizing, no, it's each person's experience is unique. And something that might be just every day to one person is kind of a window into another world for someone else.
Yeah, for sure. And was there any consideration when you were writing it and you were thinking about all these kind of, like you just said, almost mundane, everyday things? Were you thinking, okay, which parts do I want to fictionalize? Which parts do I want to keep really like the details that really connect it to the place and the time? Because that fascinated me too. We haven't mentioned this yet, but not only is this story set in Japan, it's set in the 90s. So, there were some choices made there.
Oh, that was complex because there were a lot of things that I thought, should I mention this? Should I not mention this? And yeah, each one I really had to consider. Just as an example, putting in the little bit about the politics, I thought, should I just cut this out? It's not even mentioned that, but then I thought, well, this is what was going on at the time, for one, and for two,
Mhm.
it made me think about how some things change and stay the same. Even now, when you're in another country, you are aware of what's going on in your own country that's going to be on international news and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, and also I don't know that this story would be quite the same if it took place in present day because of the connectivity that people have now. Did you find it a little bit freeing to be able to write some of these scenes and not have to worry about things like could the kids call people from their cell phone, or could mom track them on Life 360, or you know what I mean, like there's that bit of freedom.
it's hugely different, and that is actually something I feel like the book kind of explores a little bit because it's talking about how life has become more restricted since their parents' generation, and that life has changed for kids nowadays. And I think I put in a little bit about the cell phone situation at the time, which then in edits I was reminded that they were called mobile phones back then, which again is just such an evidence of how things have changed, and we've just kind of gotten used to them. But yes, it is strange to think how much different it would be if we had phones and such.
So it seems that you are a third culture kid. You grew up in a different culture than the home culture of, one or both of your parents. So, is there any general wisdom that you'd like to impart to others who may be experiencing a similar upbringing, maybe experiencing some of these same encounters with other cultures?
Oh, that's a hard one. I know for me personally that my mother would fall into the category of a third culture kid, but because of there's a heavy level of Americanization on one side of the family, Actually, I think Jonathan Haidt, he talks about how 15, 16 is the really, really influential age. And so for my mom, because she moved back to Japan when she was an older teen, she didn't experience as much of that. And so I know for my mom and for myself, there's a lot of real assimilation, which I know is a lot harder for those who have experienced more moving around when they're younger. And so I hesitate to give advice because I feel like it's a heavy thing and it's a difficult thing, but I think having support from other people who kind of know what it's like is just a huge can make a huge difference.
Mhm.
And becoming isolated can really just can make it such a heavy burden.
Yeah, having connection with other people who just kind of quote get you is always helpful. It's always nice to find other people who've had a similar journey, but find those folks and have a little, communication community that helps support you through those things. So I think that's great. And also, I would wonder, since you wrote your book based on notes from your experience traveling, maybe, I mean, the younger folks could think about, if you find yourself in some of these interesting situations or traveling or, hanging out with a family on the other side that has a different culture than maybe what you're used to, taking some of those notes like you did. I mean, you said you wish you had written a little bit more, right, while you were there, because now you'd love to look back on it.
For sure. Yes.
And to some degree, I think we all feel that way about things from our childhood too. Like, I wish I had maybe recorded that because now I don't remember it quite so well.
And I think writing about your big feelings, it's kind of embarrassing to look back on it because you think, why was I upset about this? But at the same time, it's also encouraging because you see that those deep feelings and then you see how you worked through it and that you came out of it. And so for me, looking back on all of those things and it gives me hope for the future because next time I experience something like that, I can remind myself
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to experience them and then know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, kind of.
Yeah. So we know that you obviously journaled a bit while you were over there. We know that you have written a book for Bandersnatch Books, but are there other things that you write? Or did you write a book previously and just kind of shoved it in the drawer like sometimes we do with other manuscripts? Is this your first like full-length manuscript?
It's definitely my first full-length manuscript. I have written a lot of partial stuff, and actually around that this summer was the around the time that I first started writing. And so when I first started writing it, I at first kind of explored the idea of trying to make everybody into characters, and then I quickly discarded that. But I have had many projects that have not reached any kind of fruition, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to work on this as a writing exercise. Just say, can I do something from start to finish? And I kind of went through my own little, well, just I've always wanted to write science fiction and fantasy. So the realization kind of but it wasn't what I was intending to write was kind of jarring. And interestingly enough, my husband had just read Little Woman to all of my kiddos. So we watched 5 or 6 movie versions of it. And so 5 or 6 times I got to be reminded of how Joe has all these aspirations to write these crazy wild adventures and then ultimately learns that writing about what kind of is real and true is not a bad thing.
Right.
So that was really very timely.
Yeah. And, when we got your manuscript and we started reading it, I think all of us were it just drew us in. You did a great job. And I feel like we all kind of maybe saw ourselves in it, which is what you want people to do is say, I can feel what this person is feeling. And I want to know what happens next. And it's not like a big meteor is, like you said, it's not science fiction. It's not fantasy. There are no meteors that are about to strike the earth and everyone has to like hide underground. It's not that at all. It's just like some, like you said, everyday stuff, but also very interesting. and some not so everyday stuff because it does involve international travel, which most of us don't get to do. So you met your goal, you finished the manuscript, and then how did you find Bandersnatch Books? How did you decide to submit it for consideration?
So after I finished writing it, I did immediately, very quickly start editing it. And when I rereading it, I did have this thought that, this is the genre of book that I would have enjoyed at that age, the age that I was in the book. And I thought, as a homeschool mother, I'm always hearing homeschool mothers talk about how their teenage children are looking for books that are going to be realistic and going to be like the kind of feelings that they're going through and such. And I thought, this is the kind of book that they're asking for, I think. And yet there's really a gap in the market for those kinds of books. And so I thought this is the book I think that people are looking for, but I don't know that anybody's going to want to publish this because of that gap there. And then one day, I was reading a Bandersnatch book to one of my kids, and I thought, Bandersnatch, they're the people who are publishing in this one area that nobody else is publishing. And so then I looked to see when you guys were going to be taking manuscripts, and I think it was about 6 months out. So I said to my husband, I think I'm going to try and polish this up for Bandersnatch. And then if they don't accept it, that's going to be it because there's nobody else looking for books like this. And he said, well, surely there's somebody. So I did. I submitted it. And then I didn't look around for anybody else. I really felt like it was Bandersnatch or nothing.
Well, you were right. It was Bandersnatch. We published Treasures Found Off the Beaten Path, as we like to say. So, wait, weren't you also homeschooled, Bethany?
I did public school, private school, and homeschool. At the time of the book, I was being homeschooled. Yes.
Do you think having been homeschooled has helped you homeschool?
Honestly, I kind of, in some ways, feel like it was the opposite because since I was homeschooled, I just felt like I was just going to say, here's their schoolwork and they're going to do it. And it didn't happen like that. And then I had to start going to conventions and like actually learning from scratch how to homeschool.
Oh.
But that's fine because there's such a strong community of support and lots and lots and lots of material, much more than there was when I was growing up.
Mhm. One of the things that I loved about this book, I remember being like in middle school, maybe early high school, and reading these books that we had to read for school. Not YA, like what we consider YA now, but like these young adult, like coming of age sort of stories. And there was growth and all this stuff. And they were so dreary. Like bad things always, people died. There were always people dying, people making really bad choices, and it was just bleh. And so when I read your book, I was like, oh, I just got one of those books minus all the really yucky parts.
Oh,
So I think that a lot
yeah.
of families will appreciate that. And like you said, homeschool moms will probably also appreciate that. I mean, and as a mom, this is something that you can hand your own kids.
I did hand it to my 14-year-old because he's right in that age, and I asked him for feedback, and he did say, "Mom, you seemed a little naive for 14." I said, "Well, that's because you're 14 right now."
That's funny. But that's good. You had your own like beta readers right in your home. And yeah, and it was once again, it was the 90s and we did not have the internet at our fingertips. So it was possible for us to not know things.
That, yeah, very, very possible. And yes, my children will often say, like, why didn't you just listen to this or watch that? And I would say, it was not at our fingertips. We would have to go to the library and do an interlibrary loan. And it was so much harder.
Yes. So I know a lot of people are going to be interested in Japan, just generally speaking, and may pick up this book because it's set in Japan. So I was wondering, as far as research goes and writing, yes, you went there when you were younger, and you probably talked about some of these things with your mom and your family, but it's different when you're trying to research for a book and have like the details and the facts down, right? So what was that experience like where you may have been writing about something and realize, oh, wait, you know what? I just kind of have this vague idea or this memory the way I remember it, but I should probably check on that and make sure that I'm right.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, there were probably about 20 tabs open in my computer when I went back to fact checked it. When I first wrote it, I told myself I was going to do zero fact checking, zero editing because otherwise I wasn't going to write it. But afterwards I had to go back for sure and kind of double check. And it is nice that we have so much available online right now because I think that is one of the things with like Laura Ingalls Wilder where people will say, well, she was wrong. You know, it didn't happen in this year, it happened in the other year. And you're thinking, well, she didn't have the internet to go fact check that.
Right.
I definitely could say that there are things that I've kind of little tidbits about Japan that I put in there. I had to research it to refresh my memory, but things about the that I didn't even know at the time when I was writing it, which is that, you know, this building is had at the time it was made, it had the fastest elevator in the world. But now I just go online and check and see, was that elevator actually the fastest in the world or did I just think that because my grandpa was making it sound amazing? And yeah, I was able to look it up. It's no longer the fastest one in the world, but at the time it was. And things like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I know that if somebody asked me to write something about my hometown, I would probably need to do a lot of research because even though I lived there for a long time, I just have my version of it, right? Like it may not be 100% factual. And so while you could take some liberties with story, changing the events, some things do need to actually be accurate.
Yes, and very grateful for the editors to fact checking a lot for me. You realize how much has become more like lore in your mind. Things like when the Olympics happened, that for sure I had totally misremembered, but it was we were able to catch that in editing, so that's great.
One question I have from reading the book, and this is a very small question, but the weather,
Oh yeah.
what was going on with the weather? I mean, it's a summer book, right? But there was
Mhm.
a lot of cold days and but they were swimming. And so, you know, tell us about the weather in Japan.
So the weather in Japan is very hot and humid. I live in Texas, where it is also hot and humid. So I talk a little bit in the book about how the houses are not not considered as permanent as houses here, and it made me think a lot about England and about how the houses get infested with mold, and then people go crazy in your gothic novels and such. Well, I thought maybe Japan has it right, you know, tear those houses down, then we won't go insane from the mold. But this lakeside community is much cooler during the summer, and that is why a lot of people would go there, people who are not as acclimated to the heat. And so I think you have more of those cold, misty mornings, and because you're by the water, which we don't have here in Texas. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area where you did have those cold, misty mornings, and then you would have a blazing hot day, but you would know that it was going to be cooler. I, since it did happen so many years ago, I couldn't really fact check exactly
The weather.
or the weather in that particular summer, but definitely I want to go back now.
Yeah, I have a memory of trying to learn to swim one summer. Keyword trying, it didn't work. But I took swimming lessons. And I do remember, like, in the morning, because it was first thing in the morning that the swim lessons were, it was cold in that pool. And it was the middle of summer, but I did not enjoy that icy dunk.
Yes. And also, I think this is probably apparent in the story that I have sensory issues with water. I realized that as I reread it and reread it and reread it and saw all the mentions of how I don't like being wet
Mhm.
and such. And I thought, well, there were probably going to be some kids who have sensory issues who can relate to this.
Yeah, I could relate to the whole swimming nightmare. All right. So one thing that we do here on the Bander Pod is we ask popcorn questions. Those are quick questions. They don't require, you know, prior research or anything like that. And they're usually maybe a little silly sometimes. So brace yourself, or maybe not silly necessarily, but just kind of light. All right. So first question, list 10 things on or around your writing space.
Oh, Well, I don't actually have a writing space, so but I will say that the first 8 are definitely going to be my kiddos. They're always on and around my writing space.
There you go.
And then after that, it's definitely going to be a hot drink. I love to have a hot drink, and then chocolate for sure. Chocolate.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, speaking of chocolate and treats, what is your favorite Japanese treat?
Oh, there are so many. I love them. The ice cream sandwiches that I mentioned in there, I mentioned them so much that my son, who read the book now, is quite interested in them. We don't have really a Japanese market around here, so that's kind of a bummer. I love those ice cream sandwiches, but I mentioned a lot of other Japanese treats in there, and man, I I must have been hungry while I was writing.
But yeah, there are a lot of interesting candies and things. Just stay tuned for more Japanese candy. So, if a famous New York City deli was going to name a sandwich after you, what would it be called and what is in it?
Well, I have actually had a sushi named after me.
Oh, that's even better.
So I did work at a Japanese restaurant for several years, and they made a special sushi roll for me that actually had no fish in it. It was mango and cream cheese, and they called it the best chan roll because the TH sound is not really in the Japanese vocabulary. So they would call me Best Chan, and it was the best chan roll.
I love that. And also, when I can build my own sushi roll, just so you know, I use mango and cream cheese. And
Oh,
yes, mango and cream cheese, sometimes avocado with that, and bacon.
oh wow. That
That
does
is
sound like a
so
really good
good.
combo.
It is so good. So I approve of this sushi roll. Well, Bethany, thank you for taking the time to be with us on the Banderpod today. We're very excited about having your book in our hands this summer. And we hope that everybody's going to pre order and go ahead and get their copy because it's going to be a classic, I think. Just a classic coming of age story that you don't want to miss.
Well, thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're welcome. Listeners, may you find bookish treasures in your wanderings off the beaten path.
Flickr.press is a brand new, serialized digital publishing platform where truth, beauty, and goodness can thrive. Readers looking for their next good read can find authors who write with honesty, excellence, and imagination. Stories are labeled with content warnings, so readers know what to expect up front, and no explicit or gratuitous content is allowed. Read the first chapters of any title for free, and unlock new chapters by spending credits to support the authors whose works you love. Join the movement and try Flickr.press today.
Thanks for listening in to our conversation today on the Banderpod. We hope you'll check out our full catalog at bandersnatchbooks.com. The Banderpod is produced by Rachel S. Donahue, A.B. Donahue, and Carolyn Claire Gibbons. Audio engineering by S.D.G. Morgan. Artwork by Evelyn Warnamundi. Many thanks to our friend Chris Slayton of Son of Laughter for our theme song, Cricket in a Jar. Find links and more in the show notes.